Okay, hi everyone, and welcome. I'm Michael Callahan. This is our Founders Corner podcast, and today I have Michael Nicosia with us. Hello, Michael.
Hello, Michael.
For those of you that have joined us all along, you know that we do these every 2 weeks. I try to bring a topic that's interesting to people and go a little bit in depth on it and provide something of value. And today, the topic is on partnerships. So we're going to go a little bit into what do they mean, and maybe Michael, we'll start just kind of broadly, and then we'll drill in. But when you think partner or partnership, what comes to your mind?
We always talk about an ecosystem, around you. And when I talk about ecosystems, I'm talking about different types of partners, and it could be different levels of partners. It could be a channel partner, so a reseller. It can be a technology partner that you're associated with because you've got specific integration. And then obviously you've got alliances partners where you're actually putting together kind of a go-to-market strategy to pursue jointly for joint success. And the reason why they're important is because as a startup, sometimes you can't do things on your own because you're lacking the credibility that organizations like CISOs are looking for in order to, feel comfortable with you to procure you. So in the early stages of a startup, I mean, partnerships are so critical just because of that massive element of credibility and that massive element of you're part of an ecosystem that makes sense for companies to want to not only move forward with your solution, but how's it kind of incorporate with everything else that they have within their infrastructure and organization at the time.
I think it's a good point, and it's something you and I've done this for a while. And when I go back and think about companies that you're wanting to work with or try to sell to, other than a handful of really large companies, they all work with a partner or a couple of partners, especially like on the channel side where they're doing procurement. And I think to your point, why is that? And it's because they trust them, right?
Mhm.
They have that trust in the partner, and then if the partner has that trust in us, then everybody sort of wins. But I think that trust,
Right.
and they look to someone for advice that they can rely on. Is there anything that you've seen that really tips the scale? Like, and maybe let's talk about the one we were just talking about with more of like the reseller or the channel partners. Anything that like really tips like why people do that, or maybe the opposite of that is things that people that they don't like, right? Things that don't work on that particular type of partnership.
Yeah, on the reseller side, it's a little bit tricky. Obviously, you want to partner with organizations that have some kind of relevancy in companies that you're trying to sell to. For instance, you've got a financial services company and they use specific resellers that they've done business with them for so long. It's
Yeah.
really nice for you to associate yourselves with them because then it makes it easy for them to do business with you. So I think from that vantage point, those are always really important to kind of associate yourselves with them. So whether it's a procurement vehicle or whether it's just they've done business with them for the last 10, 15 years. So you always want to try to make it as easy as possible. So associating yourselves with different resellers that add value to your kind of go to
Yeah.
market is always super important. And in today's world, especially from a security perspective, I mean, nobody takes deals directly anymore because everybody wants to leverage resellers from that procurement perspective, as well as some added value that they bring to the table that can
Yeah.
help your solution.
Well, I think to your point there, like that added value, one of the things that resellers in particular is they can bring the best of breed solution that's going to solve the problem
Right.
because they see so much, right? They're not like a vendor where they have just a product or a set of products, but they can bring the best solution to the partner and really add that value. Anything you've seen that just blows that up, where it's just a mistake, and if a vendor or the partner does something, the end customer is just like, yeah, I'm not going to do that. Forget it.
Yeah, I mean, I personally haven't seen anything. I mean, obviously, these relationships are all about trust. And if you break that trust, I think that's the only way that those things kind of blow up and really not put you in a good position. I think the only other thing is at times in big organizations like your typical Fortune 500, Global 1000, sometimes there's multiple resellers that are at play and making sure that the rules of engagement, you follow those rules of engagement at the very beginning of the sales cycle throughout the procurement process of the sales cycle is super important.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that keeps, I mean, if everybody knows and has the same expectation, then you don't have surprises toward the end, and then everybody
Right.
understands why something may have gone one way or the other. I think the one thing that you and I have talked about before, and I'm happy to report that Salt does not do this at all, which is taking something direct. That's a recipe that you build your reputation over years and you destroy it in a minute, right? That's the kind
Right.
of saying. And if you're working with a partner and then you take something direct at the end, nobody forgets that, and that's a it's a big problem. It doesn't really help anyone, because that relationship is really like a three-way relationship, and you
Right.
can't burn any one of those three. You mentioned when we first started talking about alliances, maybe a little bit of that and how you talked about resellers and channel as a startup. What about alliances? How do you see that working to help companies?
Yeah, I mean, I think alliances are critical components for any startup to kind of scale. And the more critical alliances that you have, the better your chances of scaling. We always talk about nirvana. If you can tie yourself to an alliance partner that will help you resell your solution or will OEM your solution, I mean, those are the best type of alliances that you can have, because how it benefits customers is obviously this creates a bigger value proposition for the customer to be able to consume that technology, that solution, which is super important and super beneficial for them. And when you're the startup, if you can align yourself with a larger organization that's been selling for many years, has thousands of customers, that's always a value for you. And again, why is it a value for them? Is obviously your solution hopefully betters their solution. So it's a bigger value proposition to serve customers and what they're looking for. So I think those are really, really important. And it's interesting, as you start a company, it's always interesting to see where your solution fits into the ecosystem. I talk about this ecosystem of security, like where does it fit in that makes it more palatable or more value for a customer to look at two companies integrated together versus just your solution.
Yeah,
So you're always looking at those type of alliances that could really, really help move the needle
yeah.
for a startup.
Yeah, and maybe let's just talk for just a minute or so on one in particular. I think people that follow Salt or seen some things we're doing. We have a relationship with CrowdStrike from the very early stages that they invested in us, but more recently an alliance relationship. And maybe talk just a little bit about that and how it's complementary and what we do with CrowdStrike and the joint solution. Yeah, maybe just talk a little about that.
Yeah, I mean, we have a very special relationship with CrowdStrike. They're an investor of ours during our Series D. We let them come into the round strategically, and the reason for that is because we all felt that there was several integration points that we can leverage together to create a bigger value proposition for customers out there. So if you think about the three integration points, we're integrated to their XDR, so we can do, if you have XDR from CrowdStrike, we can do blocking
Yep.
automatically from our solution. The second integration point is they've come up with their second generation SIM solution, and we're completely integrated to that so that we feed obviously any API security insights to their SIM solution, which
Right.
gives customers even bigger value or bigger visibility across all their threat landscape between ourselves and CrowdStrike. And then finally, we just announced our founding integration to CrowdStrike, which means that we can spin up our own sensor from an agent, a Foundry agent that CrowdStrike already utilizes. And why is that a benefit? Is that if you already have, Foundry agents out across your organization, you can easily spin up Salt Security and being able to take a closer look at providing visibility into that workload from an API perspective. So it gives additional visibility to CISOs or companies. And again, you take that visibility and you push it through their second generation SIMS solution that gives them a full view of kind of like not only cloud security, but API security, right? Endpoint security, a variety of different elements that just give greater visibility to customer. And that's why this is so important, is that it really creates such a big value for customers. It gives them that visibility, as well as other things like posture gaps that we can identify for them and so on.
I like that a lot. So it's super easy with the Foundry platform that we built on top of that we can deploy in just a few minutes. But I think that that last piece, which is it's adding value by being able to provide the visibility into the next gen SIM. Some of the estimates that we've seen is that up to 30% of the risk in an organization comes back to APIs, right? So you're
Right.
basically your company is being run by applications, and those applications are essentially just a bundle of APIs. And to be able to provide that, a third of the risk that you may not see simply and easily, it's a huge value for anybody that's got a CrowdStrike or any infrastructure like that. Before we wrap up, any last word on partnerships? Anything that you want to leave the audience with?
Yeah, I think for me and for Salt Security, I mean, having specific alliance relationships creates a much needed additional value that you want to push across your security landscape.
Yeah.
And it just allows startups to not only gain that credibility, but it also allows us even that opportunity to continue to scale, especially when certain alliance integrations really make sense for customers from a value perspective. And if you can find that early on, it just benefits
Yeah.
not only yourself, but obviously your solution and what you're trying to provide in the industry.
Yeah, I like that. I'll add just one piece to that before we wrap up. And I hear you say this all the time, and it's so true. It's you always are thanking our Salt customers for the trust that they put in us. I mean, it's the same thing with the partners, that the trust they put in us so that they can believe that what they're going to offer the end user is going to be of value. And that trust is sort of fundamental to all that you do with customers or with partners. So I think it's good.
Yep.
Okay, Michael, thank you. Everyone else, thank you again for joining our Founders Corner. We will do episode 8 in 2 weeks, so please check back often. And as always, these are always on demand on Salt.Security. Thank you again for joining, and we'll talk to you soon.